We are over the desert. Perfect. Don't try this at home, kids. Hello everyone, I'm Assassinator and welcome back for another episode of Kerbal Space Program. Okay, so in our last episode, my OBS was messing up and cut off about half the recording. It just turned off and I didn't catch it, so I ended up losing all that video in which we actually got to orbit. So in this video, I'm going to show you that craft that I built, break it down a bit, and we will redo it again. So this is the craft that I built. Now this is completely capable of going to orbit. It has 3,373 total delta V. Right, delta V is going to be your delta velocity, which is pretty much your fuel to get to orbit. And I believe, and I'll have to double check this, but I'm pretty positive you only need 3,200 in order to get to orbit. So a few questions that I got. So I just want to make this clear. Whenever you're building a craft to lift off the pad, you want to get it into orbit. It's very important that your last stage, your booster stage, which is going to be these two solid rocket boosters and this liquid fuel engine, you want to make sure that your thrust to weight, that is the amount of thrust you are pushing against the planet versus the weight of the craft, is above 1. Right? So, you know, a perfect ratio would be at least 1.3, which would get you off the ground at a good enough speed. As you can see right here, this is going to be a 2.3 to lift off. If we go ahead and let's go ahead and do this and move this out of there and put that in there, you're going to see this change to 1.75, right? So that's going to be generally the liftoff speed of this craft is going to be 1.75. I put this one in this stage because I'm going to ignite this engine just for some control, because SRBs don't have any control, so it'll end up flipping around and falling over on its side and just be a huge accident. I'm not ready to kill any Kerbals today, so this will mainly just be for control reasons only. Okay, so yeah, your thrust to weight ratio, you want to make sure that's above 1. But don't go just slightly above. Don't do like 1.01 or 1.02, because you are going to hover there until you burn off enough fuel to where you're about 1.15, and then you'll start going upwards. So I would say 1.15 is the absolute minimum you'd want to be at for you to actually start gaining enough speed to get off the planet's surface. A good roundabout number would be 1.3 to 1.5. That's where you'd want to be at. Now I know I'm quite above that, but we're not going to be using the full capacity of this engine, so we'll be at about 1.7, which is a little bit fast. If you ever want to change your SRBs, if you right click on them, you can adjust their thrust limiter, and as you can see, it went down significantly. But we will leave it at 100%, because even though it's slightly above, it isn't going to hurt it. Yeah, it probably won't hurt it until you get to about like the 3, 4s, or 5s. Even at 2.3, it is fairly safe. You're only going 2 Gs above normal, so the Kerbals will be able to live through that. Alright, so let's go ahead and launch this and show you what it can do. Alright, so as we brought it out here to the launch pad, you're already seeing that the SRB started flopping around. Now that's okay for this simple craft. I don't have any struts to keep them from doing that, and the thrust will cause the forward portions of these SRBs to bow inwards, as the outer ones will bow out. But the margin there is so narrow, it's not going to make that much of a difference. So one thing that we'll turn on the SAS, we're going to take down our engine to about, I don't know, maybe about 10%. Like I said, it's just going to be for control. Right? And now we're going to go ahead and press spacebar, and that's going to take us up. This engine right here, we don't want to burn that fuel. too much of that fuel. That is, like I said, mainly for control, so that, you know, Jebediah here in the pilot seat can keep this thing pointed straight. Once these SRBs burn out, we will decouple them and just run solely off this engine. And that is when, now as you see this white fog that's coming across the craft here, simply all that means is we're breaking the sound barrier. That is what that is. So we want to drop those, full power to that engine, and start tilting to the right, or east. We want to go east, because that is the way the planet rotates, and you get a little, it's a bit more fuel efficient. If you lift off and go in the direction of the planet, you get a little bit of a fuel boost, or speed boost doing it that way. You can go, you know, any other direction you want. It's just going to cost just a little bit more fuel. And we want to be as efficient as possible. So we're going to go over here to the maneuver mode, and we're going to see our apoapsis. So our apoapsis is our highest point in the orbit. We're going to stop it at about 100,000. We just want to point the craft over at about a 45-degree angle, and we'll cut our engines at about 100,000. Now Kerbin's atmosphere ends at 70,000, so we're going to go about 30,000 kilometers, or not 30,000 kilometers, sorry, 30,000 meters or 30 kilometers above the atmosphere of Kerbin. And we still do have a bit of fuel left in this bottom stage here, but generally when you want to build a craft, you want to build the craft to where the bottom stage is your liftoff stage. That's going to get you out into space. Your second stage will be your stage where you orbit around the planet. So now that we are in space, now I already got all the science for being in space with all of this, so getting it now would just be pointless. Although I don't believe I got an EVA, so let's go ahead and jump out real quick and grab a quick EVA. I don't believe I got a crew report either, so there will be some extra science from that. So let's grab a crew report. Oh no, I did get a crew report. Okay. So we got some extra science there. I want to slowly tilt this craft over. We can see that we are about 50 seconds away from our apoapsis. So now if we look at the map, you press M to go in your map mode. What you want to do for the best fuel efficient is you want to burn close to your apoapsis. You don't want to ever pass your apoapsis. You just want to burn close to it, and that will save you as much fuel as possible. It'll make the burn more fuel efficient, so you're not wasting so much extra fuel. So at about 10 seconds, I think that'll be good. We'll kick on the engines. Stay in this direction. So let's go ahead and go back into this, because we can keep an eye on this. We want to get our periapsis, which is your lowest point in your orbit, to above 70,000, above the atmosphere. Now we ran out of the lower stage fuel, so we're going to press spacebar to decouple that. Spacebar, turn that engine on. That lower stage will deorbit, and we are way, way above our apoapsis. So what we got to do is just tilt this up this way a bit, and we are going to bring that apoapsis right back down. There we go. And now we can continue back right here. As you see, our periapsis is dropping very, very fast. So now we're gonna try to save a bit of that fuel. Get over here to our apoapsis. We'll go ahead and speed up time. We want to be with this not. I mean, this ship is a bit over-engineered and does have a bit extra delta V in it, so I'm not too worried. But you know, the closer we can burn to this and save that extra fuel, so we don't have to jeopardize Jebediah here and leave him out in space, or worse yet, burn him in orbit or deorbiting. There we go. And now we have completed an orbit. We have our periapsy at 142 kilometers, and our apoapsis is at 142 kilometers. Sorry, and periapsis is at 122 kilometers. Both of them above 70. We are in orbit of the planet, and we can take a beautiful look at this planet as we pass by. So I don't know. I don't believe I got high orbit. I may have gotten high orbit. But let's go ahead and see if we can get some high orbit. So we're going to burn some fuel till we get to about 150 delta V left. 142, that'll work. And that's well above high orbit. We'll see if we can't get out there and get some science. So you get science in both low and high orbit of any body. Alright, that should be well enough into high orbit. So let's go ahead and see. Crew report. Perfect. Let's go ahead and jump out of here. Let's take data, store it. Let's get an EVA report. Perfect. Let's go ahead and store that one. Get back on board. Let's open this up. Let's see. Observe mystery goo. Okay, so I did grab some science when I was out here. A little bit. I'll grab that. Let's see. Water temperature. We got that one. Okay, perfect. So now we got to bring our capsule home. I believe when I made this ship, I took the ablator down to 60 from 200. Because we don't need that much ablator to deorbit. Or from the heat up from the planet, which you'll see here in a minute. So now when you deorbit, we got to drop the periapsy, which is again the lowest point in the orbit, below the atmosphere. Right, so now you don't want to drop it just like right above the atmosphere or right below the atmosphere. You want to drop it to where it is good enough that it's going to provide enough resistance to slow you down, or air compression to slow you down and bring you back to the planet. If it's too high, then you'll just skip by the planet and you'll come right back out into orbit again. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and start burning, and we can see our periapsy drop. So let me show you one instance. So we'll just drop it down to about 60, 59. This should be good enough. This is what I mean by skipping through. We'll go ahead and leave that engine on there so that we can use it when we come back around. So now that we've entered the planet's atmosphere, excuse me, we've entered the planet's atmosphere. You're gonna start seeing some heat resistance here, but pay attention to our apoapsy. Our apoapsy, in order for us to actually fall back down to the planet, our apoapsy has to drop below 70,000. So we are still high in the atmosphere, although we are, in Kerbin's atmosphere, we're still high in it, so it's not providing enough compression to really significantly slow our craft down. So as you're going to see, we're already going back up. And all we're going to do is just go right back up into space again. So you want to make sure that wherever when you're returning, or either returning to Kerbin or landing on any body that has an atmosphere on it, such as Duna or Eve, you want to make sure that you have your periapsy at the right position. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but at a good position to where it would generate enough compression to slow down your craft. So for Kerbin, a good altitude is 35,000 meters. I would say between 35,000 and 45,000 meters is a pretty good position. Otherwise, you're going to be here forever doing this until you bring your apoapsy down to below 70,000. So we will make 100 trips like this, and eventually we will come down to the planet, but we'll be here all day doing it. So we are going to go ahead and drop that periapsy down to 35,000. 33,000, that works. It doesn't have to be exact, but you don't want to come in too shallow. Coming in too shallow can cause you to come in ballistic, and you will not be able to slow down fast enough before you hit the planet. So I would say keep it above 30,000 and below 50,000, and just anywhere within that range, just applying to Kerbin, and you'll be okay. So we're going to go ahead and ditch that stage. That'll burn up in the atmosphere. And now we are going to come down. Go ahead and flip this around. Common misconception about re-entry is a lot of people think that this is friction creating this heat and this fire. It's actually air compression. The air is being squeezed up against the heat shield under extreme pressures, and that's what that's what causes the heat and the fire. As you can see, our apoapsies dropped rapidly fast, being that low, because we're hitting a much thicker atmosphere. Seeing our blader is at 26, but we are slowing down here pretty fast. We actually have to, because I forgot to change the staging. So we need our drogues. I'll find out which one is our drogues. These are our drogues. Drogues are pretty good at slowing down your craft in a higher altitude. They're much smaller parachutes, but you cannot land with drogues. So we'll go ahead and deploy the drogues. Turn that off. So this over here, you may have seen me click this for prograde and retrograde. So I know I didn't go too much into detail. Because my pilot has 1 star, he can now use these prograde and retrograde just to point the ship, so I don't have to do it manually. Prograde is the direction in which your ship is flying. Retrograde is the opposite direction of which your ship is flying. So we are falling against the way the ship is pointed, which is why we are falling retrograde. If we are going up, we would be going prograde. We would be going the direction the ship is pointed. So we want to switch that to terrain mode. Deploy those parachutes. Those will slow us down significantly. I do believe, let's see. We are over the desert. Perfect. Don't try this at home, kids. Go ahead and open this. I believe we can get a well over Kerbin's deserts. And this, I believe, is just slow atmosphere. Yeah. So we'll save that one for when we actually land. I believe we already have this. Oh no, we already have one in there. Oh, we don't have one for this low in the atmosphere. Okay. Let's go ahead and speed up time and get this ship landed. Another 92 science. So we have 205 science. I got quite a bit of science the first time I went to orbit, and now I got quite a bit more. So we should have a good amount to get some advanced rockets. Yes, we will need some of these. Go ahead and grab that one. Oh, here are my struts. I'm definitely going to need that. It's better decouplers and a launch system. Definitely going to need that. We can get 2 more. Oh, that's so important. Reaction wheel would be good to have, and some winglets would be good to have. Well, let's see what we have here. Stay Putnik. I really dislike this satellite core. Definitely not one of my favorites. But we can definitely use some more science. Better radio, so I'll grab that one. And I am going to grab this one. Yeah, I'm just not too... We're not really building any planes, so that's okay. Alright, let's see if we can get to Mun off what we have. Let's go ahead and build a new ship. Alrighty, that's going to be it for this episode. Tune in next week. Find out if this craft is able to make it to the Mun. Alright, if you like the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe, that like button. Leave any comments down in the comment section, and I will see you next week.